This podcast was recorded on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation.
Hello and welcome to The Real Story with Joe Hildebrand. I'm Joe Hildebrand. Ding! And this week we've got another bumper episode for you. First up, the fish that could bring down the Albanese government. And what's going on between the PM and Tanya Plibersek. There seems to be a bit of a pattern forming where Tanya Plibersek does something and then the PM does the opposite. And Donald Trump, peace in the Middle East, yep, he's brung it. He's not even taken up his oath of office yet. What is he planning to do with Hamas? It is an absolute bombshell. And we're going to talk to someone who might be able to address a little crisis looming in Australia. Did you know the number of female CEOs in this country has gone down? Yeah, we're all talking about empowering women and women can do anything and, get out of the kitchen, ladies, you can do it too. But what's happening in the real world? The numbers are going down. Well, I'm a feminist ally. As a straight white man, I'm going to fix this problem for you, ladies. All that and more coming up. First up this week, I want to introduce you to my little fishy friend. I didn't know we were friends until a few days ago. I didn't even know that this thing existed. But apparently it's been around for quite some time. It's some link to the dinosaurs, if we're to be believed, or the experts are to be believed. I just said that. I read it somewhere. Don't know if it's true or not. This is a fish called the Maugean Skate. It's a ray fish, not like Ray Hadley, but like a stingray. But I don't think it has a sting. I think it's quite friendly. And apparently it's very old. And it's only found in a particular harbour, a remote harbour called Macquarie Harbour on the west coast of Tasmania. And that just happens to be where a whole lot of salmon farms are as well. And this fish apparently is not doing too well. Not the individual fish. There's more than one of them, although their numbers are dwindling, although they have stabilised according to the sustainable salmon fishing community. But this fish is apparently under threat, and people are saying, well, it's under threat because of all these salmon farms in the harbour. Now, a less compassionate person might say, who gives a f***? It's a fish. There's literally plenty more fish in the sea. But, apparently this has some special sort of link to prehistoric times and some link to the dinosaurs. Don't birds have links to the dinosaurs? Didn't dinosaurs just become birds? Aren't they just flying around everywhere? Not the robot 5G ones, like the actual real physical birds. I thought they were the link to the dinosaur age. What would I know, though? Nothing. Anyway, there are quite a few people who have more pressing concerns on the north and west coast of Tasmania, and they would be the marginal seats of Bass, Braddon and Lyons, which are held by the Libs and Labor, respectively. And the problem is that if the government, namely Tanya Plibersek, the Environment Minister, actually shuts down or pauses activity on these salmon farms, a lot of people could be out of work. In the small town of Strawn, I think about 1 in 2 people have jobs linked to the salmon fishing industry. That's a lot. Wiping out half a town's population. That's a lot. That's no good. The local school says it might have to close down because there won't be enough people to go to it. And across that sort of northwest Tassie region, 1 in 6 people have jobs that are linked to or directly in the salmon fishing industry. And if a politician is going into that area and saying, we're just going to shut down that industry, we're going to close down that industry or pause it. And again, I don't know if you'd like to have your job paused in the middle of a cost of living crisis. I know I probably wouldn't. I've had a few jobs paused in the past. Not that much fun. If you're a politician who's saying that you're going to lose your job because we have to save this fish, that is what I believe psychologists call clinical insanity. That is insane. That is a crazy thing to do. And so basically half the cabinet has been sent down to Tasmania, including I think the member for Franklin is actually the Agriculture and Fisheries Minister. She's down there saying, oh, no, love the salmon industry. Oh, can't get me enough salmon. Oh, yeah, that sweet, sweet tassel salmon. They're down there saying, no, it's fine. Meanwhile, you have what people less kind than me would call inner city greenie lovies pressuring her to do the sort of environmentally friendly, sort of eco-sustainable thing and protect the fish, the Maugean skate, against the horrors rent upon it by all these hundreds and thousands of workers in Tasmania. And they released a poll by the Australia Institute, a very progressive sort of think tank, released a poll, and it shows that 58% of people, including both Labor and Liberal voters, think that the Maugean skate should be saved by the closure of these salmon farms in Macquarie Harbour. One small catch, all of those people live on the mainland. None of those people are actually in the marginal seats of Tasmania. None of those people have their jobs on the line. And the people on the ground say, actually, we'd probably rather put food on the table than save some weird flat fish that no one's ever seen. So that is the latest political headache facing the Albanese government. What to do about an obscure fish in the middle of Macquarie Harbour. It's not found anywhere else in the world, by the way, apparently. It's just found in Macquarie Harbour. So do we save this one thing in the one place where it lives? Like, if it was that important, wouldn't it be in other places as well? Like, you know, like if you're that critical to the environment and the ecology of planet Earth, why are you all just hanging around in one place? Diversify. It's the key to success, trust me. It's what I did in my career. Look at me go. Anyway, so that again is something that very few people would have had on their 2024 bingo card, that the Albanese government, after a huge run of good luck, then a huge run of bad luck, and the voice kind of in between, could now find itself facing its own form of extinction due to a nearly extinct fish. What a year it's been. Now, the other thing that the Maugean skate, this fish to end all fishes, this fish to end all governments, has illuminated is what people are, again, very unkindly, and I would never say such a thing, calling a rift between Anthony Albanese and Tanya Plibersek. And this is something that's characterised three, and they say good things and bad things come in threes. And for Tanya Plibersek, bad things definitely have come in threes, because first, she has opposed the McPhillamys gold mine out near Orange, and that was because of a submission by this kind of fringe Indigenous cultural organisation that no one else seemed to really know about or recognise or whatever, that there was a dreaming of a blue-banded bee in the area, the river area, that they were going to build a tailings catchment for this gold mine. Are you keeping up? Take notes. Anyway, point being, there was a blue-banded bee and a dreaming about that bee. So a story about the bee, which is very important to the local people, local Aboriginal people. And that's, you know, that is important stuff. Only catch is that the actual official custodians, the official land council, the official sort of elders of that area, they say there's no dreaming of the bee. That's just not true. Anyway, out of abundance of caution, Tanya Plibersek, who is a very nice person and very worried, obviously, about the environment and clearly not wanting to upset Indigenous people. I've had a couple of disappointments in the last 12 months or so, not sure if you've noticed. Said, oh, well, we better make sure we protect the dreaming of this blue-banded bee. And she's opposed the gold mine at the last possible hurdle, having it already been approved by the state government, having already been approved by all the other federal regulatory authorities. Said, nah, sorry, can't risk it. Now, this has sent the New South Wales government, which is also a Labor government, pretty apoplectic. And it's sent the PM pretty apoplectic as well. He's going, hey, hang on a minute. I just promised that after the voice failed that we were going to do everything we can to, make sure there's economic opportunities for Indigenous people. And we've got all these Indigenous people in this area saying they want this mine to go ahead because of the economic opportunities, and we're blocking it because of come again? A blue-banded bee. Oh, not the bee, the dreaming of the bee. But that they say doesn't happen. Anyway, so they got into a giant morass of that, and anyway, there was a bit of a he said, she said, quite literally a he said, she said, where, Tanya Plibersek was saying, oh, no, the mine can still go ahead. And the mine people saying, well, not really. We sort of have to do another whole bunch of years' work to find another place. And of all the other options, 3 out of the 4 still involve this site. So they're all gone. And I don't want to bore you in the technicalities. And then Albo's like, oh, no, it's fine, mate. It's fine. Then there's the deal that Tanya Plibersek was going to do with the Greens, the nature positive deal, which was supposed to sort of kind of maybe not really stop things like this happening. So have a sort of proper, clear nationwide framework that would sort of get these sort of environmental concerns all out the sort of front so that, people would know what they're doing. People running big projects, big mines, that sort of stuff that keeps the economy going, We dig it up, we sell it, we get lots of money. Woo! Everyone's happy, even the Chinese, and they're hard to please. And then suddenly the PM has a bit of a chat to the West Australian Premier, and the West Australian Premier, whose state relies pretty much entirely on natural resources, say, do you really think it's a good idea signing a deal with the Greens about what projects can and can't go ahead in the future? You don't think that might sort of, not to sort of mix our colour metaphors, that might raise a few red flags? And Albo appears to have gone, actually, you make a pretty good point there, Rog. And he's kiboshed that. And now we've got Tanya Plibersek looking at whether or not she is going to act to pause salmon farming in Tasmania to protect the Maugean Skate. That fish has a lot to answer for, I swear to God. If I ever find one, if I ever get my hands on one, it'll know what extinction feels like. Now, again, 3rd time in a row on an environmental matter, Albanese has had to come in over the top and try to sort of rest assured, tell everyone, everything's going to be okay. Don't worry, we're kibosh it. We won't let that. So you can imagine that Tanya Plibersek is pretty pissed off at this stage. But as always with politics, it's personal. I always say nothing personal. It's just politics, but it's all politics. It's all personal. I remember seeing that on the back of a toilet door at the Melbourne Uni Student Union. The personal is political. Now I fully understand it. Because, of course, there is a bit of history between Albo and Tanya Plibersek, because in 2013, Tanya Plibersek ran with Bill Shorten, Albo's kind of natural nemesis within the Labor Party, ran with him against Albo and Richard Marles, our current Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, despite the fact, of course, that Tanya Plibersek and Anthony Albanese are both from the left faction and they're meant to sort of stick together. But, of course, they're not, because Labor rules dictate that there's always a leader from one faction and a deputy leader from the other faction. Some rules are made to be broken, by the way, because in New South Wales, we've actually got the leader and deputy leader both from the right faction, but the payoff for that is that the leader and deputy leader in the upper house are both from the left faction still. That was a sweet deal the New South Wales right stitched up, and they fully pulled one over the left. I don't know if they know that now. Maybe they're listening to it. But anyway, it is perfectly legitimate and reasonable and okay for Tanya Plibersek to run as a deputy against a fellow left faction leader who is running for leader on a different ticket. That, in fact, is expected. That is the norm. That is the convention. But apparently, Tanya Plibersek, or people close to her, people in her camp, were trying to peel off votes from the left for her and Shorten's ticket. This is just what I've been told. I don't have any stat decks. And that is not how you do things. That is not what you're supposed to do, or at least not according to Albo. And that made Albo a bit cross. Or I don't know if anything makes Albo cross. He's pretty happy. He's a pretty happy guy. He's pretty loved up. Maybe that's part of the problem. He's got to feel the pain we all feel so he can act accordingly. He's just too happy. But it does something that's almost worse than making Albo cross. It activates his long-term memory. Because once you go against Albo, he just never forgets. He just has a habit of being able to tuck that little bit of information in the back of his head, and then when the opportunity arises down the track, just acts on it. Maybe he doesn't even know he's acting on it. Maybe it's just a sort of Pavlovian reflex. But sure enough, when Tanya Plibersek went from opposition to government, along with everyone else in the Labor Party, she was the shadow education minister and had every expectation of being the actual education minister, and instead was made the environment minister, which you could argue is a bit of a hospital pass for someone who lives in a very greeny inner city electorate, but who, as a minister of the government, is going to be required to allow a whole bunch of things that inner city greenies don't like gold mines, like coal mines, like anything that threatens the existence of the Maugean Skate. And that is where Tanya Plibersek has found herself, and that is where Albo has had to come in over the top of her, either explicitly or implicitly, and nix 3 things that she was either working on or had actually done. So that is what's happening in the Australian environment, and that's what's happening in the political environment between Anthony Albanese and Tanya Plibersek. Just a quick bit of light-hearted news to wrap up the end of the bulletin. There's peace in the Middle East. Donald Trump has fixed it. The war between Israel and Hamas and whoever else they're fighting is over. He's done it all. He's done it all in a tweet. Or he hasn't done it in a tweet because he's not on Twitter anymore. He's done it in a truth. He's done it in a post on Truth Social, which is a social media platform that Donald Trump quite conveniently owns. Well, I think, did he sell it? Anyway, he's doing all right. And he's posted, and again, if you've been listening to this podcast and other smart people who have sort of been saying this, sadly not all the people in America who think they're smart and didn't think that Donald Trump was going to win the next election, Donald Trump is doing something called madman diplomacy. He is just being a complete crazy guy, and that is actually a legitimate political tactic. That is a literal diplomatic strategy that was worked out by Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger during the Vietnam era. And it basically involves just not necessarily being so crazy, but having your opponents, enemies, your combatants think that you are so crazy and so capable of anything that they become paralyzed and timid and they do not escalate an already hot situation. So when Richard Nixon was the supposed madman, he could do anything. He's got his fingers on the nuclear button. What's he going to do? And the Vietnam War is raging and people are waiting to see if there really is a domino effect and if this becomes a catalyst for World War III, which is what people were worried about. This is just a few years after the Cuban Missile Crisis where Khrushchev and Kennedy are facing each other, you know, and Khrushchev's got his nukes. Kennedy's got his nukes. Is someone going to fire them? Are we going to wipe out the entire human race? And they didn't because they were both sane actors. In the madman diplomacy, you've got Richard Nixon who's saying, I could do anything. I'm crazy. You've got Henry Kissinger saying, I can't control this guy. He's off the leash. So the people in, say, Mao's China or in Russia, in the Soviet Union, are thinking, holy crap, we better not antagonize this guy. We better not escalate things because anything's possible. He could do anything. Now just think about that. And now think about what Donald Trump posted on Truth just a few days ago. This is what he said. He said, everybody is talking about the hostages who are being held so violently, inhumanely, and against the will of the entire world. World with a capital W for some reason. In the Middle East with a capital M and an E, which is more legit. But it's all talk and no action. Exclamation mark. Please let this truth, all caps, serve to represent that if the hostages are not released prior to January 20, 2025, the date that I proudly assume office, capital O, as President of the United States, there will be, all caps, all hell to pay in the Middle East. And for those in charge who perpetrated these atrocities against humanity, with a capital H, those responsible will be hit harder than anybody has been hit in the long and storied history, capital H, of the United States of America. All caps, release the hostages now. Now, as we know, the first way and easiest way to convey that you are off chops is to just have random capital letters in a message. And Trump has just delivered that in spades. Now, no, he hasn't said what he's actually going to do. He hasn't said how he's going to get back. He hasn't even said who he's going to attack. I mean, Hamas has already been rubberized. They've already basically given up. They got nothing. All their leaders are dead. Hezbollah's signed a 60-day ceasefire deal with Israel. Again, that happens just after Trump has been elected. Suddenly they're scaredless. They don't know what this guy's going to do. It's like when you're going feral and then, you know, your mum tells you that your dad's coming home and he's in a really bad mood and everyone goes, oh, we better play nice. It's also like when someone else likened it to this. If you're about to get in a pub brawl and you know you can't beat the guy and you know you can't get away, the best thing to do is just act like you're fully psycho crazy. You know, just smash a bottle. This isn't official advice for, you know, individual people. Get your own expert advice. For every case is different. But generally speaking, just smash a bottle and go, Rah! Or no, I don't know. I haven't been to a pub for a while. I don't know if they're still like that. But the point being, you just alarm everybody so much that everyone says, crikey, this guy is crazier than all of us. We better stop acting crazy. We can't provoke him. We don't know what they're going to do. And again, sure enough, people have started to play good. Even Hezbollah has started to play nice. Even the Russians and the Ukrainians are starting to think, oh, maybe we better come to a deal before Donald gets in. And he's doing it all, whether he knows it or not, based on a decades-old principle called madman diplomacy. Something so crazy, it just might work. Now, the other day I was helping my 7-year-old daughter pick about 6,000 loom bands off the floor of her bedroom. And when I say helping her, I mean I was picking all of them up and she was telling me that I'd missed one, telling me that we weren't leaving until I'd picked up every single last one, not accepting the fact that we could just pick up the most of them and, of course, organise them into their individual colour sets and then just vacuum up the rest and no one would know. That was not good enough. Every single loom band had to come up and every single loom band did come up. And during the course of our little operation together, which lasted about 2.5 hours, she said to me, Dad, I think I know what I want to be when I grow up. And I said, what's that, darling? And she said, a boss. And I said, well, you're certainly on the right track, sweetheart. More power to you. A boss of what? She goes, I don't care, just a boss. So I thought, how do you actually go about doing that? How do you become a boss? And I thought to myself, I know who would have the answer to that question. The actual boss lady herself, Amanda Rose, who is actually the boss lady. That is her handle. That is her job. That is what she does. And I'm still not quite sure what that is, but she's with me right here, right now on The Real Story. How are you, Amanda?
Well, how are you?
I am fantastic. Welcome to The Real Story. Firstly, let's answer that question.
Yes.
What do? You are a champion of women in business and
Yes.
you are #the boss lady.
Yes, and it was actually a funny story with the boss lady. I was, at the beginning of my business, I was posting things on social media and a few people were kind of mocking me. I went, oh, you're a boss lady, are you? And so I actually took that and turned it into a hashtag, and then 15 years later, I'm still using it. So it was very much of, yes, actually I am, and anyone can be, because it's being the boss of what you do.
Yep.
And, you know, I've founded multiple businesses, so Entrepreneurial and Small Business Women Australia, Western Sydney Women, Western Sydney Executive Women. I had Businesswoman Media many years ago, and it was a media business that was online because no one would publish what I wanted to say. So I thought, I'll do it myself, and thought, can't be that hard. But I did it and I've sold it, thank goodness, and moved on.
So you are a boss. That is your job. You just set up companies, you be the boss of them.
Yes.
Then you flip them, you sell them, and you move
either
on.
Flip them, restructure them, or hand them off to other people to manage and run, because what I like to do is be able to provide an income for others as well. So, contracting to people that have businesses or employing people, and it's money for them, which is why I take it very seriously that you don't jump too far ahead or too quickly, because people's livelihoods are at risk.
So what do your businesses kind of do? Yeah.
So, Entrepreneurial and Small Business Women Australia started during lockdowns because no one was representing the businesswoman, which usually earns under 75K, which was the threshold to be able to get any payments, because usually it's a job for a woman. So she's got her business, she'll bring in that money under GST, wasn't eligible for anything. And I went, hang on a minute.
So hang on, the poorer you are, the less eligible you were for assistance.
Absolutely.
That does not make sense.
It's because a lot of people don't realise that a lot of small business women, it's a job for them. They're not growing into having teams, nor, do they want to.
And they're the ones sort of doing all the work for nothing, basically,
that's
putting
right.
everything back into the company. So they're not actually drawing.
Well, that's right. And if they're trying to, they're struggling, they're contractors, but also even the the larger small business, you could say, there was no advocacy. So everything was about, this is for small business. Now, hang on a minute. You've got to put the filter of the female on that. So during lockdowns, they were trying to run their small business whilst also looking after the children and homeschooling and doing all these things. And no one was taking that into consideration. So over a weekend, I started that business, and then I did 3 months of free weekly webinars to help them through that time, and then started running. So a lot of us still have free stuff and advocacy. We do submissions to government, we read legislation and give our input, but we also have mentoring programs and events for them. And then I have Western Sydney Women, which is an advocacy group that runs events and also, again, puts in submissions to government, advocates. Other charities actually get us to help them design programs that are effective.
Right.
And we want to help girls and women have access to resources and the connections you don't automatically get when you're in Western Sydney to be able to get the jobs and opportunities that they want.
And you're a full-blown, born and bred Western Sydney chick yourself.
Absolutely. I love Western Sydney, and let's face it, it's where all the money is, it's where all the talent is, and often it's where the most abuse is done when it comes to abusing the money and the talent in the area.
Yeah, that's right. It's a rough and tough. It's a jungle out there.
It's a jungle everywhere,
glorious jungle that we love. It's a jungle of heartland that we love. So there is actually a very serious hard news side to this as well. Figures that were just released recently shows the number of women CEOs has actually gone down. Now, they did a study of the top 300 companies in Australia. And look, they weren't exactly dizzying heights to begin with.
No.
And look, it's fair to say it's not the steepest drop I've ever seen, but the number of female CEOs of the top 300 companies in Australia has dropped from 26 to 25. Now, I feel like this is something we talk about all the time. Everyone's like saying all the right things.
A lot of rhetoric around.
A lot of rhetoric, a lot of virtue signalling.
Yes.
And yet, when the rubber hits the road, the number is going down. Why is that?
Because it's effort. So to actually find someone in your team that is ready for that role, we're not talking about quotas and for the sake of it and get a woman and put them in that role because we need more women. They're qualified women. I coach women, right, at all levels, and they are qualified and they are ready. Most of the time, they don't think that the company thinks that they're ready, or they don't think that the CEO or the person on the board thinks that they're prepared already, but they are. So we need to understand the way the men work in those companies are often a guy will say, I want it, I want it, I want it, until he gets it, whether he's qualified or not. A woman will just say, I will wait for someone to tap me on the shoulder and give me the opportunity.
I'll wait till I'm recognised.
When she's overly qualified for it. So we need people to actively go out and say, I want you to apply for this, which I've heard stories of people doing that, which is great. We can support you. We can put in mechanisms in place, for example, if you need flexibility and so forth to be able to do it, because a lot of these women have teenagers to look after and they shouldn't be disadvantaged. So they really need to put in the effort to say, no, let's go and find the women we have in our company right now.
And this is actually what you do as well. Yes. This is part of what you do. You help fix this problem. So it's not that women, because you often hear that women lack self-confidence professionally. It's not that they know their own worth,
they do.
But they're not flying their own flag.
No, they're
right?
not. And that's the thing. They find self-promotion uncomfortable. But also a lot of women...
It's gauche.
are seen as a threat and they're attacked. So there's a lot of passive-aggressive backstabbing by the opposition in for that role. So it could be a male that wants the role.
Yep.
Will go and make her life hell.
Yep.
Will make it miserable. And that is absolute petulance, and it's ridiculous for people to act that way. But I don't want women to be disheartened by the fact that that behaviour happens, because it happens pretty much everywhere, right?
Yep.
So it's more about ignore that and go for it. Because once you get it, you can fire them.
So you're I really like your style. So you're sort of saying, rather than a kind of top-down kind of, say having quotas for women on boards or in management positions, it's more important to empower women to basically use their elbows a bit more and
have
say,
fun, call bluff,
I'm
negotiate.
going to.
Absolutely. I think it's so much fun. And the way to do that is to always have another job waiting.
Yes.
So I always encourage people to always be on Seek, always look on LinkedIn, apply for jobs, go through the interview process, and then you can walk in, ask for a promotion, ask for that job, and if they say no, you can quit because you've got another one lined up.
Amazing.
And
Walk
I've
away.
done it.
I know. Well, that's what my mum used to do at Trash and Treasure. Slightly different, like
Same
slightly
formula.
different stakes, but same formula. It's
That's
like, give it, $20 off or I walk away. And you've got to be prepared to just walk away.
The person who cares the least in a relationship, Joe, is the most powerful one.
I found that out the hard way. Can tell you that.
I doubt
But
it.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So what would you say then to people who are saying, well, hang on, no, we have to have these kind of orchestrated government. I mean, do government policies actually help? Does regulating this actually help? Or does that just mean that perhaps people who aren't ready are put in these positions just for the sake of ticking a box? Is it all about the individual?
Well, it's a mix.
Punching up?
So for government tenders, like for infrastructure tenders, right, they'll have a requirement in those tenders that 30% of the leadership team are female. And a lot of companies go, oh, no, quick, we'll pull all these people we know. So having those structures in place, I don't mind.
Yep.
But what I'd like to see is the companies ready to say, oh, yeah, we've got them already.
Yep.
We've prepped them already. So often quotas are in place because people weren't doing the right thing in the first place. So you'll find out that the discussion of merit, they say, but we want the best person for the job. I guarantee you half of the boards in this country would disappear, or half of the people on the boards would disappear overnight if we were doing merit-based board positions, right? So why did this merit discussion only happen now that we want women to be included? So if we just did that whole hiring blindly without names and age, it'd be very different.
So that's right. So there is actually a natural quota that would exist if employers and I suppose shareholders as well and other people who end up making these decisions were truly merit-based and not just a boys' club pretending to be merit-based.
It's called inclusivity. And it's
that sounds so wanky.
No,
Can't we call it something else?
No,
like
in
boss chicks?
No, but true inclusivity is not trying to say, oh, I need more women, or I need more this culture, or I need more this age group. It's literally, these are the opportunities. I'm going to encourage everyone. I will go out of my way to make sure everyone has the same access to that opportunity. Yep. But when you just say, I'm just going to go for that particular group and hunt them down, they then become the enemy of everyone else.
Also, I like the cut of that bill. He's got a good swagger about him. Nice head of hair. Got a can-do attitude.
Well, you just described most of the boards, Joe, how they got picked.
I love it. So, if you have true natural selection.
Yes, if you were just
women will get ahead because of course,
understand your own bias.
Yep.
And it's okay to say, oh, I've been biased in that instance and I shouldn't. And also, can we just the reality is the best flatterer and salesperson usually gets the opportunity, but doesn't always mean they're going to be best person for the job. Yep. Right. And then the person who hired them doesn't admit that they've hired the wrong person because they got conned or flattered into it. So how about we just put that aside and look at outputs?
I love it. Amanda Rose, I would hire you on the spot just because you're awesome and I'm a little bit afraid of you. Thank you so much for joining us on The Real Story.
Thank you.
And that's all we have time for this week. Thank you so much for your company, one and all. If you'd like us to talk about anything or got any questions, you can email us at therealstory@novapodcast.com.au. You can jump onto Instagram, which is the least evil of all the social media platforms. I'm at Joe_Hildebrand. And you can check out all my hot, sweet pics. I'm thinking about doing an OnlyFans site. If you want to subscribe to that, there's an early bird special. You might want to get in on the ground floor for that one. Oh, you can just slide into my DMs. Cut out the middleman. And if you've got anything to ask, anything you want discussed, join the club. You can also read my columns in the various News Corp mastheads around the country, including the Mighty Daily Telegraph, every Saturday and Monday. And I will see you next week.